Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Claire had been watching from the shadows for weeks, meticulously piecing together every scrap of evidence she could find on Audra's latest schemes, and every day the tension grew tighter, almost suffocating like the air before a storm breaks. She knew the moment she stepped forward to expose Audra, it would ignite a chain reaction that could change the course of Genoa City forever, and she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her chest, knowing that what she had uncovered wasn't just a trivial secret or a small betrayal. It was something that could shatter lives, and yet, despite the gravity of it, there was a flicker of exhilaration in Claire's chest, a rush of adrenaline that came from being the one who finally held the truth in her hands, the truth that could unravel Audra's carefully constructed facade, revealing her manipulations, her lies, and the depth of her cunning in ways no one had yet imagined. Meanwhile, Phyllis, always sharp and attuned to the undercurrents of the city, sensed that something was stirring, that a storm was about to break, but even Phyllis was caught off guard when Cain, whom she had always thought she knew, revealed an angle she had never anticipated, showing that his intentions were far more complex than anyone had realized, blending loyalty, personal ambition, and a hidden agenda that shifted with the subtlety of shadows at dusk. And as Claire prepared to confront Audra, rehearsing the precise words that would expose her schemes, she could feel Cain's presence lingering at the edges of the room, observing, calculating, and his true motivations flickering in and out of sight like a candle in a drafty hall, leaving both Claire and Phyllis questioning everything they thought they knew about him. And when Claire finally stepped into the confrontation, every detail she had painstakingly gathered laid bare like bones beneath thin skin. She could see Audra's composure falter for the first time, the cracks in her polished exterior revealing the fear and desperation she had tried so hard to suppress. And in that moment, Claire realized that exposing Audra was not just about revealing a secret but about laying bare the raw, fragile humanity hidden beneath the web of manipulation, deceit, and ambition. And as Audra scrambled to cover her tracks, throwing out denials and half-truths with frantic energy, Phyllis watched in stunned silence, piecing together the puzzle she had never fully understood. And suddenly the true picture of Cain's intentions snapped into focus, the subtle cues he had given away over months, the fleeting glances, the carefully measured words, the small gestures of unexpected loyalty, suddenly made sense, revealing that his game had always been far more layered than anyone had assumed, blending personal stakes with professional strategy, loyalty with ambition, and perhaps even a touch of moral reckoning. And as Claire pressed on, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her, she laid out the evidence piece by piece, each revelation cutting through the tension like a scalpel, exposing Audra's manipulation of key figures in Genoa City, her behind-the-scenes control of events that had seemed random but were meticulously orchestrated. And with every word, the room grew heavier with anticipation, the air crackling with the energy of truth meeting deceit, of revelation meeting long-hidden intentions, and Phyllis, normally the queen of calculating moves and anticipating twists, felt a rare and unaccustomed uncertainty, realizing that Cain, whose loyalty she had questioned and whose motives she had tried to interpret through her own lens, had been operating on an entirely different plane, a level of strategy and insight that left her both impressed and unsettled. And as Claire's evidence piled up, the weight of it undeniable, Audra's veneer of control began to crumble, revealing vulnerability, desperation, and a quiet, simmering panic that only heightened the intensity of the moment. And just as it seemed that Audra might attempt a final, desperate counterattack, Cain stepped forward, his actions measured, his presence commanding yet subtle, and Phyllis, witnessing the interplay of motives, realized that he had never truly been the pawn she assumed him to be, but rather a player with a carefully hidden hand, one that was influencing events with a precision and foresight that no one had credited him with. And as Claire's revelations continued, painting a picture of betrayal and manipulation that left no room for doubt, the dynamic in the room shifted entirely, the focus moving from Claire's accusations to the subtle yet undeniable orchestration of Cain, whose intentions, now laid bare in part, revealed an ambition tempered by loyalty, cunning guided by a moral compass that was hidden but present. And Phyllis, observing this intricate dance of truth and strategy, felt a mixture of awe, fear, and a twinge of admiration, realizing that the story was never as simple as she had thought, that every player had layers and every motive had depth. And in the midst of this, Claire felt a strange sense of vindication, knowing that her patience, her careful gathering of facts, her unwavering commitment to the truth, had brought her to this moment where secrets were no longer shadows, and every hidden intention was illuminated under the harsh light of confrontation. And as Audra faltered, the intricate interplay of motives among Claire, Cain, and Phyllis became the real focus, the unfolding drama revealing the complexity of human desire, ambition, and loyalty. And in this crucible, alliances shifted, loyalties were questioned, and the true nature of Cain's intentions emerged like a slowly revealed painting, every stroke deliberate, every color carefully chosen, revealing not only his strategic mind but also the depth of his emotional intelligence, his understanding of the players around him, and his ability to manipulate events without ever appearing manipulative. And Phyllis, witnessing this, felt a mixture of shock and revelation, seeing for the first time the full measure of his capabilities and the hidden depths that had always been just out of reach of her perception. And as the confrontation continued, Claire pressed on, unrelenting, exposing the nuances of Audra's deceit, her manipulation of relationships, her use of secrets as weapons, and the quiet, almost imperceptible ways she had influenced the outcomes of events that had seemed unrelated. And through it all, Cain's true intentions acted as a counterpoint, a reminder that in Genoa City, power and loyalty were rarely what they seemed, and every revelation had layers, every truth was entwined with motives both noble and selfish. And as Claire laid out the final pieces of the puzzle, Phyllis felt the full impact of the moment, realizing that the game they had all been playing was far more complex than she had imagined, that the alliances and betrayals were interwoven in ways that required not just cunning but insight, patience, and an understanding of human nature that went beyond the surface. And in this tense, electrifying environment, the confrontation reached its peak, with Audra exposed, her plans laid bare, and Cain's intentions illuminated in partial clarity, leaving the room charged with the energy of revelation, strategy, and the ever-present tension of what would come next. And as the dust settled, Claire stood firm, knowing that the work was not yet done, that while secrets had been revealed and intentions exposed, the consequences of these revelations would ripple through Genoa City in ways none of them could yet fully predict. And Phyllis, still processing the true depth of Cain's strategies, realized that trust, loyalty, and power were more fluid than she had ever acknowledged, and that in the delicate balance of ambition and morality, the players who seemed most transparent were often the most enigmatic. And in the quiet that followed, as the echoes of confrontation lingered in the room like a fading storm, Claire understood that exposing Audra was only the beginning, that every choice, every move would now carry new weight, and that in this web of intrigue, truth, ambition, and human emotion, nothing would ever be the same again. And as she prepared for the next steps, she felt both the burden and the thrill of being the one who had pulled back the curtain, revealing the hidden machinations of those around her. And Phyllis, reflecting on Cain's true intentions and the layers of strategy she had only begun to understand, realized that the city, its players, and even she herself were now forever changed, caught in a complex, ongoing dance of power, loyalty, and revelation that promised that the drama was far from over. And in that moment, the pulse of Genoa City seemed to quicken, as if responding to the unveiling of secrets, the exposure of hidden intentions, and the intricate interplay of ambition, morality, and human desire that bound Claire, Cain, Phyllis, and Audra in a web of intrigue that would continue to twist and turn with every choice, every action, and every revelation yet to come, leaving no one untouched, no motive unquestioned, and no outcome predictable, as the delicate balance of truth, strategy, and emotion held the future of Genoa City in its trembling, intricate hands. Claire's resolve only hardened as the tension in the room thickened, every heartbeat echoing in her ears like a warning drum, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders with the clarity that the truth she wielded was as dangerous as it was powerful. And as Audra's carefully maintained composure wavered under Claire's relentless scrutiny, the cracks that had always existed behind her polished facade widened imperceptibly but undeniably, revealing not only the fear that had fueled her schemes but also the desperation that had driven her to manipulate, deceive, and control those around her. And every gesture, every carefully calculated denial, every flinch and micro-expression betrayed the extent of her panic, while Phyllis, standing slightly apart, felt an unusual surge of unease, the kind that comes from realizing that the person you have always thought you understood might actually be operating on multiple planes of motive. And it was then, in that suspended, almost sacred moment of revelation, that the subtle brilliance of Kane's strategy began to crystallize in her mind. Every seemingly insignificant move, every hidden intention, every expression that had previously seemed casual or misplaced now revealed a hidden logic, a deliberate, meticulous orchestration of events that balanced personal loyalty, professional acumen, and a carefully hidden personal agenda that was revealed only in fragments but nonetheless carried enormous implications. And as Claire methodically laid out the sequence of Audra's manipulations, her careful positioning of allies and enemies, her silent influence over events that seemed coincidental but were in truth carefully orchestrated, the room became charged with a kind of electric tension, an invisible current that raised the stakes beyond the ordinary, and Claire could see Audra's mind racing, calculating, grasping for control, knowing that exposure was imminent, while Phyllis felt her own mind re-evaluating every interaction, every subtle conversation, every fleeting moment of Kane's behavior, realizing that the man she had misjudged, underestimated, and even occasionally distrusted had been playing a complex game that none of them had fully appreciated, and the depth of his foresight was both humbling and terrifying, because it was clear that Kane's intentions were not only multifaceted but also morally and strategically sophisticated, blending loyalty, ambition, and a hidden sense of justice in ways that made him unpredictable yet frighteningly effective. And as Claire pressed on, revealing not only the broad strokes of Audra's manipulations but also the delicate, intimate ways she had interfered in relationships, professional dealings, and personal alliances, the full scope of her influence became undeniable, and the subtle power dynamics in the room shifted, with Claire as the harbinger of truth, Audra as the unraveling architect of deceit, Phyllis as the observer and reluctant analyst of human behavior, and Kane as the quietly commanding, unseen force whose real intentions had remained obscured until this very confrontation. And as each revelation landed, the ripple effect of past choices, hidden alliances, and carefully guarded secrets became painfully clear, creating a lattice of intrigue so intricate that each participant, no matter how composed, could not help but feel the strain, the tension, and the latent danger in the room. And Claire, feeling the momentum of her revelations, pushed further, dissecting the ways Audra had manipulated public perception, influenced decisions behind the scenes, and used secrecy as a weapon to control outcomes, to undermine rivals, and to protect herself while advancing her own interests. And with every detail exposed, Audra's mask slipped just enough to reveal the human vulnerability beneath the calculated exterior, the mix of fear, shame, and ruthless determination that had defined her strategy, and the subtle reactions of those around her. Phyllis's careful scrutiny, Kane's measured responses, Claire's unwavering focus, acted as both mirror and magnifier to the tension, amplifying the consequences of each disclosure, the stakes escalating with every passing second, because in Genoa City, knowledge was power, and power, once exposed, could cut deeper than any weapon, and it was in this maelstrom of revelation, strategy, and hidden intention that Kane's brilliance became undeniable, his previously cryptic actions now revealing a layered, morally complex framework of choices, each designed to protect, manipulate, or advance in ways that balance personal loyalty with the long game. And Phyllis, absorbing the full measure of this, could not help but feel a mix of awe, fear, and grudging respect, recognizing that his influence had quietly shaped outcomes in ways that had been nearly invisible until now, and the subtle interplay of motives, Claire's uncompromising pursuit of truth, Audra's desperate self-preservation, Phyllis's evolving understanding, and Kane's hidden orchestration, created a tension that was almost tangible, thickening the air, tightening the space between them, and creating a moment of narrative gravity that was rare even in the most dramatic episodes of their lives. And as Claire's exposition reached its crescendo, detailing how Audra had manipulated key figures, orchestrated events to serve her personal goals, and wielded secrets like weapons, the fragility of her carefully constructed world became starkly evident, and in that same breath, Kane's interventions, subtle guidance, and quiet manipulations began to surface, revealing the sophistication of his plan, which had always been more than mere reaction or loyalty. It was a deliberate, multi-layered strategy designed to protect some while exposing others, advancing personal objectives without ever appearing overtly self-serving. And Phyllis, forced to reconcile her prior assumptions with this new clarity, felt a profound shift in perspective, a realization that in the complex web of Genoa City intrigue, nothing was ever simple. Every action carried hidden consequences, and even those closest to you might operate with motives invisible to the naked eye. And as Claire's words continued to cut through Audra's defenses, exposing betrayals, half-truths, and manipulations, the subtle but undeniable pattern of Kane's strategy emerged, revealing that his intentions had always been guided by a sophisticated understanding of human nature, timing, leverage, and the delicate balance between moral responsibility and personal gain. And as the layers of deceit and revelation piled one upon another, the room seemed to vibrate with the raw energy of truth colliding with manipulation, the shockwaves touching every corner, every player, and every hidden motive. And in that charged moment, Phyllis, Claire, Audra, and Kane were all acutely aware that the consequences of these revelations would echo far beyond this confrontation, altering relationships, reshaping alliances, and forever changing the balance of power in Genoa City. And as Claire concluded her detailed exposition, laying bare Audra's actions in meticulous clarity, she also highlighted the subtler forces at play, the quiet interventions, the strategic silences, the unseen calculations, and the hidden loyalties that revealed Kane as not merely a participant but a central architect of outcomes, guiding events with precision, insight, and a moral framework that, while sometimes opaque, was undeniably effective. And as Phyllis absorbed this revelation, she realized that Kane's true intentions had been shrouded in layers of complexity designed to test, protect, and manipulate in equal measure, and understanding this changed everything, challenging her perceptions, assumptions, and even her understanding of loyalty, morality, and ambition. As the charged atmosphere in the room lingered like a tangible force, Claire could feel the weight of every secret she had exposed pressing down on Audra, who now stood frozen, her carefully constructed defenses cracking under the relentless illumination of truth, each revelation like a hammer striking the foundations of her carefully managed image. And while Audra's mind raced, flailing to justify, deny, and rationalize, Phyllis watched in stunned silence, the gears in her mind turning as she reevaluated every past assumption she had made about Kane, his subtle behaviors, the carefully measured pauses in conversation, the unspoken influence he had wielded behind the scenes. And she realized that all along, what she had interpreted as hesitation or uncertainty had been a deliberate, calculated control, an orchestration of events designed to achieve a specific outcome. And the implications were both thrilling and terrifying, because it meant that Kane had been several moves ahead of everyone, quietly guiding the flow of events while appearing to be merely reacting. And as Claire pressed further, laying bare the depth of Audra's manipulations, she detailed the subtle ways in which Audra had influenced business decisions, manipulated relationships, and used personal vulnerabilities as weapons, every revelation intensifying the electric tension in the room, a pressure that seemed to squeeze the very air from their lungs. And in the midst of this, Kane remained eerily composed, his eyes flicking between Claire and Audra with a clarity and calm that contrasted sharply with the chaos unfolding, revealing to Phyllis the depth of his strategic foresight and the moral and emotional complexity behind his decisions, because it was now obvious that every action he had taken had been carefully calibrated to protect certain individuals, to expose certain truths, and to advance his own carefully considered agenda, which was not purely self-serving but intertwined with a sense of justice, loyalty, and long-term vision that few could comprehend. And the realization of this sent a shiver through Phyllis, because she recognized that Kane was not merely a participant in the drama of Genoa City but a quietly powerful architect of outcomes, capable of shaping events in ways that were simultaneously subtle and decisive. And as Claire continued, weaving together every fragment of evidence, every conversation, every secret meeting, and every hidden maneuver Audra had conducted, the scope of Audra's influence became undeniable, but equally undeniable was the precision with which Kane had mitigated, redirected, or even amplified certain consequences to achieve a calculated balance. And Phyllis, observing this with growing amazement, could see for the first time how Kane's hidden intentions had shaped the narrative around them, turning what seemed like random chaos into a controlled, deliberate orchestration of outcomes. And as Claire's words struck like lightning, revealing the interwoven web of deceit and control, the room seemed to pulse with the energy of revelation, and Audra, desperate now, attempted a feeble defense, her voice trembling as she sought to regain even a shred of authority. But every word she uttered only underscored the extent of her failures, the fragility of her position, and the inevitability of the exposure. And Kane, standing quietly to the side, seemed almost untouchable, a presence so commanding yet so understated that it was easy to forget that he was, in many ways, the one controlling the flow of events, guiding Claire's revelations, and ensuring that Audra could not manipulate the narrative further. And as Claire enumerated the consequences of Audra's actions, the betrayal of trust, the manipulation of family, the sabotage of professional and personal alliances, the impact of Kane's interventions became more and more clear, because his actions, previously invisible, had been the stabilizing force, the counterbalance that had prevented chaos from spilling beyond the intended boundaries, and Phyllis, processing this, realized that Kane's moral compass, strategic insight, and personal ambition were not at odds but rather intertwined, creating a sophisticated framework for navigating the treacherous waters of Genoa City's intrigue. And as the tension built to a fever pitch, Claire continued her relentless pursuit of truth, detailing the sequence of manipulations, the hidden correspondences, and the subtle coercions that Audra had orchestrated with such finesse, while simultaneously highlighting the ways in which Kane had subtly redirected the impact of these manipulations, ensuring that certain truths remained hidden until the precise moment they could be revealed to maximum effect.